I remember listening to it on the school bus going to school, and it's like no one knew what I was listening to, and it's the most camp song ever. But it just made me feel so good and glam. And even though I was wearing a boys' school uniform, I just was living my drag fantasy inside. I would say my shower song. Typically, anything by Missy Elliott usually gets my day started. Get Your Freak On, She's a Bitch, Hot Boys. Hot Boys is a good one for showers. Doja Cat Streets is a song that I want to hook up to. I don't really know. I think probably Party Next Door or Megan Thee Stallion, if you really want to like switch it up. It depends what kind of hooking up we're doing. If it's like something that's like, very romantic, then again, throw it back to the R&B, some Kalani, that kind of vibe. But if it's like, something that's, fulfilling the moment, then I would say, get some Megan in there and get it popping. I think my first makeout session was at prom, and it was just, I think it was to another level, and I think it was like From the Heart or something like that. It was like at the end of the night. When broke up with my first ex-boyfriend, I remember listening to Sia Breathe Me over and over and over again and just progressively feeling more and more sad, but in some way also helping me feel better at the same time. It's a very cathartic song. So, and that album is incredible. I've got so many very formative memories of that album. So I would say Sia Breathe Me. So I'm a huge drag fan. I'm obsessed with drag. I love Drag Race and all of that. But Bob, the drag queen, has this podcast called Sibling Rivalry with Monet Exchange. And it's just, they just lay into each other every single episode and just take the piss out of each other. It's hilarious. But they also like kind of analyze and, critique other drag queens. And it's a little shady, but it's also really fun. So if you're looking for a bit of a shady podcast, but all in good humor, then listen to Sibling Rivalry for sure. The song that reminds me of my best friend is probably Cardi B, Bodak Yellow. I remember I can't remember what year it was, but that song was everywhere. And we were going out a lot at that point, and I was DJing as well. And I just remember that was a song that was getting everybody going on the dance floor. And I met my best friend at the same time. So we really bonded over that song, just the feeling that it gave us at the moment. The song that's guaranteed to make me cry is Cyndi Lauper, True Colors. I had a lot of bullying in high school, and it was a song that both helped me cope, but also reminds me of how I had to cope with a situation that I should never have been in the first place. I don't know, I find like I draw a lot of my strength from childhood and who I was before the world started telling me who I should be. So I'd love to really bring that back to the end of my life. And Time After Time is from one of the first albums I ever bought, which was her greatest hits, 12 Deadly Sins and Then Some. And it always just reminds me of when I was in my bedroom, had no friends, couldn't talk to my parents about what I was going through, but I still had the strength to go to school every day and face my bullies and get through it. So I think I would like to take that song of empowerment from my childhood and bring it to the end of my life. The most played track on my Spotify is a song by Slater called Troubled Paradise. It's just pop perfection. I think that Slater's doing something really interesting with her sound for an independent artist to come out with such slick, polished production and songs that sound like they could be coming from big label artists is really inspiring. That you don't need to be signed to a huge label to be creative, and producing quality music is a great sign of the times, I feel. I think my most played artist is most likely Britney Spears. I just get a lot of empowerment from her. For a kid that grew up in the 90s and early noughties, it was a very strange time. And I think Britney encapsulated, without meaning to do it, how white artists can be inclusive and multicultural within their art visuals without making it a thing. If you look back, a lot of her visuals, her dancers who worked on her team, it was like all kinds of different people. Her dancers were gay. The music wasn't necessarily exclusive in any way. I don't know. I kind of felt like when you were watching a Britney show, you were brought in. Obviously, everything that she went through in the public eye, I think that that's why the gay community and the queer community have such a respect for her, because she went through so much and still is going through so much. So, yeah, I love Britney. Okay, so the top 5 songs on my Spotify Daily Mix. Number 1 is Slater Troubled Paradise. Number 2 is a song by Fred again and the Blessed Madonna called Maria, We've Lost Dancing, which is incredible, by the way. Check it out. Number 3 is Britney Get Naked. Number 4 is Doja Cat, Streets. And number 5 is Azealia Banks, Young Rapunzel. The first podcast I ever listened to, I was really obsessed at the time, still am a little bit, obsessed with true crime and crime scene investigation podcasts. I just found it really interesting how they broke down what had happened, and I don't know, I'm just nosy. I just love kind of like some dark stuff, basically, sometimes. I would say my ultimate diva is Mariah Carey. There is no other diva apart from Mariah Carey. Mariah's just got it all, isn't she? She lives the diva ship. She isn't just the voice, she isn't just the performance, she is the diva. My favorite Mariah track, probably The Roof. It's an underrated classic, very sexy and sensual. Probably also double it as my makeout track, to be honest. I think, I don't know, I haven't actually had the opportunity to make out to somebody to The Roof, but I feel like it would be a very good evening. My queer anthem, I'll be very disappointed if I go to a pride and don't hear Carly Rae Jepsen Run Away With Me. As soon as that klaxon comes on at the beginning, you just like know that it's time to run to the dance floor and just like put your hands up and that kind of feel. But yeah, Carly Rae Jepsen Run Away With Me, a moment. I was really obsessed with RuPaul when I was in high school, and he had a song called Looking Good and Feeling Gorgeous. And I remember listening to it on the school bus going to school, and it's like no one knew what I was listening to. And it's the most camp song ever, but it just made me feel so good and glam. And even though I was wearing a boys' school uniform, I just was living my drag fantasy inside. So Looking Good and Feeling Gorgeous all day. So I only really listen to drag podcasts, to be honest, on the regular. But I would say that Trixie Mattel and Katya's podcast is something that always makes me feel really, really happy. And they don't really talk about anything in particular, but they talk about everything. And if you watch it, then you get the visuals to what they're talking about. But it's hilarious if you listen to it blind, because you're just like, you feel like you're in on their conversation, and yeah, it's just hilarious. So definitely listen to Hi, I'm Munroe Bergdorf. Thanks for listening to my Spotify song and podcast choices. Don't forget to like, comment, and share with all your friends.